last guest is back online, to navigating the few international organizations like APEC, where statehood is not a prerequisite. We will hear about all these today, and we'll start by bringing in a practitioner of this kind of unofficial diplomacy, Leah Lin. Leah, she's the founder and executive director of the Asia Citizen Future Association, which is a Taiwan-based NGO committed to defending civic space in Taiwan and Southeast Asia through close collaboration with local civil society organizations. She's an experienced human rights practitioner, and she specializes in supporting human rights defenders, risk, and building resilient cross-border networks. Leah, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for ACFA for having me today and Zoë. And hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Leah Lin, and Sven just introduced, I'm the executive director and founder of Asian Citizen Future Association. And a lot of our partners actually call us ACFA, so okay, so sure. I'm not used to it. But yeah, so a lot of our partner organization call us ACFA, so now we call us ACFA too, so very welcome ACFA. And today, I think my role is to using ACFA's work and our project as a case to share with you guys about what is the civil society perspective on official diplomacy relations, building connection cross regional and and transnational. And okay. So APEC's mission is actually our goal is to connect Taiwan and Southeast Asia in order to create a joint strategy or a joint action to defend civic space. As you can see, this is a picture from Civicus. Civicus is a South African NGO who is monitoring the civic space in the world. And you can see clearly, very tiny, but you can see clearly Taiwan is there, the green spot there, and we are now surrounded by a very big region of red, orange, and yellow, which means the civic space are shrinking around Taiwan. So this is the background why I actually decided to found it back to 2022. So we are actually pretty young, but we have seen a lot of. So what is the background that I decided to found it ACFA was actually what I just showed to you, the regional civic space closing. So when it comes to civic space, we are talking about space that civil society and people can show their dissent. They can form an organization, assembly, collective action to show their opinion to the governments, and there is a space to have debates on some public issues. So when it comes to the situation in Southeast Asia, which is the region that ACFA is focusing on, we see that Bangkok was a very important civil society hub in Southeast Asia before and now. But we see a very clear trend that the civic space is closing in Bangkok because they are introducing some restrictive law. And also we see the very same situation in Jakarta and Manila. So this is a very big background on the civic space in Southeast Asia. And because of the background, we can see a lot of civil society organization and human rights defender in Southeast Asia are actually facing threats, not just from their governments, not just from parties or any the government, but also from some private sector that they may not know who are. Like in Philippines, there are red tagging. In Thailand, there are the majestic law. A lot of different challenges are targeted to civil society organization and human rights defenders. But unfortunately, we see that although the situation is getting worse, there is actually not a lot of legal tools or legal framework that we can use to protect human rights defenders and NGOs. And we see what happened here in our region is actually civil society is playing a vital role and we're doing a very important job to support these NGOs and activists in Southeast Asia. So based on this background, we think that Taiwan should play more roles on supporting them, but how? So I think to open up Taiwan's civic space to be more welcoming to regional NGOs and activists, and to enhance the accessibility for Southeast Asia NGOs and individual activists is one of the very important things and a very important infrastructure that we need to build. While this is actually very difficult, right? Because I believe that you guys know more about the diplomacy. So when you are supporting movement and activists, mostly you're supporting some people that are not that welcome in their own country, while Taiwan also want to make friends with their governments. So I think that's why civil society need to play a bigger role in this, because we need to have a civil society-led agenda, not just following our, like the national agenda, because it will be very different in terms of content, in terms of who we're gonna build a network with a lot. And then the third one is looking back into Taiwan's society and our governments. Actually, there is no, for example, we don't have refugee law in Taiwan. So when it comes to political asylums, there is no legal ground or any mechanism that we can adopt to host that. And also, maybe I will talk more later. And also, our government and our civil society organization are not used to work with Southeast Asia groups. Yes, and we're so far still kind of lacking awareness on what's going on in Southeast Asia. Actually, if you know about the geography, then Taiwan is actually next to China for sure. And we are in the between East Asia and Southeast Asia. So actually we can play more roles to connect like Southeast Asia and East Asia. But we are still lacking the kind of awareness among civil society and also in governments. But what I'm saying is not like government are doing nothing. Actually, we have New Southbound policy for years, and there got a lot of achievement on trading, economics, maybe medical, education, tourism, and lots. We see that in terms of human rights, in terms of civil society, actually they can, play more roles in building up a stronger connection between the real grassroots community organization and activists. So, but so far we're in the government level, we still tend to, build up connection with more like decision maker, think tank, which are also very important, but that's also why our argument is like civil society need to have our own and civil society-led agenda besides our national policy. And so the first thing after I founded ACFA, the first thing is doing research, because research will give you give you a lot of things that you can start, right? So in 2022, I established ACFA, and in 2022 to 23, we conducted research, which title is Exploring Taiwan's Role Amid the Crisis of Closing Civic Space. So in this report, we're trying to understand, looking into Taiwan, what is our restriction in terms of hosting Southeast Asia organization, NGO, and people. So we scrutinize. When it comes to rights to association, it means that not just registration, right? It's not just like some people want to come together, register NGO and run it. This is very important, very, very important. But after that, there are still a lot of things to be protected and guaranteed. Like, can they receive funding safely? Can they hire staff? And can they, for example, like invite their partner from Southeast Asia to Taiwan easily? So there are a bunch of problems that we are trying to scrutinize inside Taiwan, in laws, in our social practices, in our bureaucracy. So the first report, we also, our core question is how can we increase the accessibility for Southeast Asia to Taiwan? But there are also some small questions in this report. For example, we're trying to understand, is Taiwan actually a potential location that Southeast Asia group want to come? Right, that's so important that we want everybody to come, but if they don't want to come, then why do we need to do this research? So we interviewed 7 Southeast Asia organizations under risk and attack. Some of them, for example, Myanmar NGOs flagged to border of Thailand and Myanmar assault, and some Vietnamese independent journalist organization who register overseas in the very beginning, something like that. So we're trying to answer the question like, is Taiwan really a potential place for them? And there's a lot of key finding, and I'm not gonna go into that, but feel free to get our booklets in the front. So there will be our reports QR code inside. So also in this report, we interviewed 4 organizations. In the 4 organizations, 3 of them are INGOs, meaning Western NGOs, and 1 is from Vietnam NGO, we call foreign NGOs. So we try to understand what kind of difficulties they face during the process of registration. Actually, we found that the very important key finding is MOFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, play a very vital role in it. You can see some of the INGO, they can just use 3 weeks to start up to register, while some other also INGO, very well-known INGO, they took 12 months. So you can see if MOFA can play a better role inside to really facilitate the process of registration, then everything will become much easier. But the thing is, why do they want to do this, right? So I think the civil society is trying to enhance their understanding on, like what's the situation in the region and what can they do to really change the situation to play more role to connect with the region. And the second report was published last year already. Yeah, last year. Yeah, time flies. Last year, and this report is we started to move to our focus to Southeast Asia. So we're trying to understand in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines what is their current situation in terms of right to association. So we formed a coalition called FATASIA, it's Freedom of Association in Taiwan and Southeast Asia research group. So in this research group, there are 10 organizations, 2 from Taiwan is ACFA, we are the secretariat, and we work with Taiwan Association for Human Rights. I guess many of them might know it's one of the oldest human rights NGO in Taiwan, founded during the martial law period. And 2 of us working on this FATASIA working group and 8 other organizations from Southeast Asia with 1 regional NGOs. So we're trying to observe and following up what's going on in the region and to do some documentation. So we're trying to working with a group of NGOs so they can following up what's going on in their country. And because actually the harassment oh my God, I got 3 minutes only. Okay, I can just skip. Okay, so let's go back. So when it comes to whether Taiwan is potential as a regional civil society hub, I think there are some factors that make us think, yeah, we are, right? Like, first of all, geographic location, we are so close from Southeast Asia. We are just taking 1.5 hours to the Philippines, and the farthest one is just 4 hours. And also, I think weather really matters because imagine for Southeast Asia people and Taiwanese people go to Japan or go to Seoul, we cannot survive the winter. Yes, and also Taiwan's experience dealing with the PRC influence and our democracy governance, there are some very attractive factors that people will maybe want to go to Taiwan. And also the cost of living, we're lower than Japan and South Korea and maybe other Western countries. So, and there are actually after 2019, the Hong Kong National Security Law, there are increasing INGO moving to Taiwan to use Taiwan civic space, right? So there are some condition that we got, but what do we need to improve are actually more and more difficult. The first one, this is last thing. Like for example, the very challenging one would be the visa category and issuing, right? Imagine you're a Southeast Asia national and you ever visit Schengen country or US, you do not have this Western countries visa. It will take you a while to get a visa to Taiwan. Yeah, so visa issuing is one thing. And also, like I mentioned earlier, we do not have certain kind of legal, we do not have laws. For example, like our Civil Association Acts, it requires 30 people to start up an NGO in Taiwan. And while in Malaysia and in the Philippines, it just takes 5 or 7. Imagine you need 30 people to start up an NGO. It means that a lot. I don't have 30 friends. You know. When I started ACFA, I go to a lot of NGO to invite people to become my initiators, get their ID, and then to start up. So this is really an obstacle for Southeast Asia groups to come to Taiwan to start up. And in these 30, they need to come from 7 different cities, and they need to have Taiwan's resident address. Right? This is really difficult. So what ACFA are doing is we want to amend Taiwan's law. We want to abolish Civil Association Act, and we want to make a new law of Social Organization Act to really change this. Because this law was made in 1941, as you know, when ROC was still in China. So it's really old law. And it has some dictator ideas inside. So first of all, we want to abolish it. And also, ACFA's role is how can we put more opponents of protecting foreigners' rights to association in Taiwan as an individual or as an organization? Can Taiwan just register a foreign NGO as a local Taiwanese NGO? Or can foreigners come to Taiwan and form NGOs if they have 30 friends? This is some important question that we got. And also in our bureaucracy, MOFA had the ideas of making Taiwan the regional hub, right? But does the ideas really successfully spread and sharing to MOI, Ministry of Interior? Because this is MOI who is regulating the NGO registration, right? So inside the government, there are still a lot of gaps. And if you've ever been to Taiwan, you know that how difficult to communicate with governments. You need to use a totally different language. It's also called Chinese and Mandarin, but it is for ROC Chinese. You need to know how to write the official letter, and you need to deal with the different bureaucracy. So it's very difficult for foreigners to do that. So there are some gaps. And I know it's time tough, but I'm sorry because I travel 15 hours here, so please give me some more time. Yes. I'll be very quick. So when it comes to our advocacy to enhance Taiwan's accessibility, there are so many stakeholders, and as you can see, Taiwan civil society is there bigger because we are who is pushing this agenda. And we work with Southeast Asia organizations, and you can see around that there are actually a lot of different governments, department, and sector insights, because they are not the same one. You need to really separate them because they have totally different regulation, rules, language. So it's quite difficult to handle them. And also like donor foundation, INGO, and the immigration community in Taiwan, there are actually a lot of people, and legislative yuan. So there are a lot of people that we need to communicate with as for this campaign and advocacy. So what ACFA do is actually we have 3 different pillars. So the first one is we build up cross-regional platform. This is a very important and direct way for us to work with Southeast Asia groups, right? We meet every year, we discuss our agenda and topic together, face-to-face, and do workshop together. And the second one is to our government, to our parliament legislators. We, based on our research on these critical issues, we do advocacy to government and the parliament. And we also, during our platform, during our the annual platform, we also bring our participants to meet Taiwanese government to directly bring their stories and their experiences to the legislator. And the third one is still very important to raise awareness within Taiwan civil society and also in government. So this is Asia Citizen Future Week that we built to bring Southeast Asia NGOs to Taiwan. And we're trying to do it every 2 years to bring our forum to Southeast Asia, which is risky, right? Because, if you Global Taiwanese go to Southeast Asia to make a forum, it's politically risky because mostly you got tourist visa and the police will got surveillance, everything. So, but we're still trying to do that because it's very important. We are not thinking to, bring up Taiwan's visibility. we are thinking that we need to really reach out to our partner to show our strong patience to them. Like we need to connect, we want to connect, and we want to know your difficulties and your interests, not just Taiwan's interests, not just US interests. So this is our agenda of 2024. As you can see, this is just our second ACFW. So the second year we have 18 organizations work together to form panels. So for me, this is quite a very important achievement and organization's achievement. And we also, this is the first forum that we got in 2023. And then we also bring our participants to Taiwan to meet the legislator. I don't know if you know that Puma Shen and also former legislator Hong Sen-pan, who is now the youngest in history of the Minister of Labor in Taiwan. So this is also playing a very important role because, you know, Taiwan and Southeast Asia, we got a lot of exchange in terms of migrant workers and in terms of immigration. And just a quick glance, this is the first ACFW 2023. You can see it's not a lot of people, but in 2024, it's over 170 people attending. And you can see for the first year and second year, the Southeast Asia organization are actually the most of them are Southeast Asia organization. And then the second one is INGO. They are very interested in this idea. And then Taiwanese NGO are actually the third big party. And then, but it's very interesting to see that actually academy and media is increasing to join us. Okay, so, the last two slides. So we also work doing very similar to this, the public seminar to enhance Taiwan's society's understanding on what's going on. So like you can see, for example, it was just 2 weeks after the recall election, right? Recall election, yes. So we can feel a sense of failure inside civil society. And we see some people feel very frustrated, like, oh, we know something, but at the end it's not. So we have quickly held this event. And this one is the Thailand's Move Forward Party's deputy. Now, Thailand's Move Forward Party is the biggest opposition party in Thailand, play a very important role in Thailand's politics. And we just used maybe 2-3 days to have her sharing about their experiences because their party was dissolved twice in a very short time because they win 20-30% of percentage in the parliament while they can still not be in the power because they're very special constitution situation. But I just mentioned it because it can show that our connection is very strong enough to, we have this kind of figures to talk with us online just after 2 days or 3 days after the election. So how to build this kind of network, it actually depends on a lot of the works. Okay, maybe we can skip this. So we also do a lot on public exposure. So a press conference, for example, we bring civicus to Taiwan to meet our National Human Rights Committee to exchange ideas and also to really enhance the government's understanding on the situation in Southeast Asia. So, okay, I just finished here and looking forward to the Q&A session, Q&A time with you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. We're kind of curious when we get into Q&A to ask you why it's taking so long for Taiwan to reform its NGO laws. It's an issue that everybody knows is big, it's outdated. The requirements to found a non-profit are just very stringent in Taiwan. Far different to the United States, where you can make a 501c3 organization like in 1 day. So we'll maybe talk about that in Q&A. But I'm going to turn over to Zoe. Zoe is actually, she's an adjunct fellow here at the Global Taiwan Institute, but this is her last day before she's going off to Taiwan to do a degree. She's an incoming graduate student at University in Taipei. She's getting a Ministry of Education Taiwan scholarship. And actually, she served here as a programs coordinator, a program associate at the Global Taiwan Institute, as well as the East-West Center. She focuses on Taiwan's foreign assistance policy and also China's use of economic coercion. So we're very interested to hear about that, Zoe. Maybe you can talk a little bit about Taiwan's foreign aid for the audience.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ben. I'll try not to be biased because I myself am benefiting from the Taiwan government's use of so many diplomatic means to go study in Taiwan, but I'll jump right into it in the interest of time. So like Ben said, I'm going to be talking about Taiwan's foreign assistance policy and its utility for diplomatic purposes. So as always, when you're talking about foreign aid, foreign assistance, development assistance, the question always comes up about the efficacy of aid. This is not something I want to focus on today's discussion. We can have discussions about that later if you so please. But today, already the diplomatic utility of aid is a big enough conversation as it is. So for this conversation, I'll be focusing mainly on that. So in terms of our content today, I first just want to review what is Taiwan's official development assistance or ODA policy? What does it actually entail? What can be the diplomatic impact? And then finally, what are some challenges that Taiwan is facing right now when it comes to its foreign assistance, to its aid? So when it comes to Taiwan's foreign assistance, it does have an official development assistance arm, and this is called the Taiwan ICDF, or the International Cooperation Development Fund. So the ICDF is chaired by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, so it is connected directly to MOFA. So in 2023, MOFA reported that Taiwan provided $468 million in programs of aid, which is a relatively small budget, especially compared to some donors in the region, especially China. But it has foreign assistance projects in 45 countries. So as you may note, that number is bigger than its diplomatic partners. So it does have foreign assistance partners that are not necessarily recognizing Taiwan as a diplomatic partner, right? So one thing that is interesting to notice, though, is that when we're reviewing its diplomatic partners versus where it has aid programs, it does not appear that it gives foreign assistance to former diplomatic partners. So once you cut ties with Taiwan, they halt all foreign assistance programs to that country, which can cause issues, and we can talk about that in the Q&A if you are interested. So in terms of the progression of how Taiwan's foreign aid how far it's come. In 2023, there was a white paper released by MOFA that was its first update to its foreign assistance policy since 2008. So since the Ma administration. So it was a long time without updating its foreign assistance policy. And in this original white paper during the Ma administration, there was a huge focus on diplomatic partners. There was not so much on connecting the people with countries who did not recognize Taiwan. So this has really changed, obviously. So on paper, we can also see that now there's a greater focus on small grants, not so much large infrastructure projects, not loans. Loans, in fact, only make up about 0.02% of their budget at ICDF. So it's a very small part of that. Some recent projects, just for your awareness, include Somaliland government IT upgrade. They upgraded their IT system, scholarship programs to study in Taiwan, SME microlending projects like what you see here in St. Kitts and Nevis in 2022. So major criticisms of Taiwan's foreign assistance over time can really paint a negative picture of what Taiwan's foreign assistance entails. Especially during the Ma administration, there was a lot of criticism about checkbook diplomacy, right? So using foreign assistance to basically retain countries for their official recognition of Taiwan. This is not far from the truth to what was happening. And there was actually a lot of cases of corruption. As you can see here, this is a court drawing of former Guatemalan President Alfonso Portillo, who pled guilty to embezzling funds from Taiwan in exchange for diplomatic recognition. So it was very much a thing that was between 2000 and 2004. So when Tsai Ing-wen came to power in 2016, one of the first things that she noted in a press conference, as you can see here, is checkbook diplomacy in its conventional definition ended a long time ago and no longer exists. Whether this is actually true is a whole other conversation, but I think it just paints this picture that they're trying to update their image as a donor of foreign assistance. This is where 2020 COVID comes into play. So the Taiwan Can Help campaign was not necessarily started by the government. In fact, it was a civil society organization that came up with the phrase Taiwan Can Help. But ICDF really grabbed onto it and definitely used it, as you can see here through some donations. So this is Taiwan trying to paint itself as a participant in the international community, which is our discussion here today. that it is not just an isolated member that is helping only people that recognize it, that it's actually actively trying to participate in the international community. So I found this aid data survey that was taken in 2021 that is really important to the story of how Taiwan paints itself as an aid partner. So they asked partner countries that were receiving aid, they asked them to rate all of their aid partners based on influence, which is bottom axis here, versus the positivity of that influence. So as you can see, Taiwan is that red circle up at the top, relatively low in terms of raw influence, but one of the highest in terms of positivity. So the countries that received aid from Taiwan rated it extremely high in terms of positivity. So as you might know, USAID is on here, WHO is on here, Taiwan scored higher than all of them in terms of positivity of their influence, which is huge when it comes to the diplomatic utility of their aid. So my colleague here at GTI, Adrienne Wu, and I don't know if she's around here, but we did a content analysis of local media and how they portrayed Taiwan's foreign assistance. So all these countries that received Taiwan's aid, we looked through their media and saw what narratives they used to paint Taiwan. So as you can see here, when it comes to these narratives, the number one most seen term that we saw was this partners in development, that it was a mutual benefit, that Taiwan was considered a model, or that they had a focus on people instead. So we also looked at, I won't go too far into it because of time, but we looked at international media as well and how it also viewed Taiwan's aid. Notably, in terms of the type of aid and effectiveness, it said Taiwan's investment was the most noted in its foreign assistance programs, that it was investing. So one thing that I will note on this too, is that local media did not really compare Taiwan's aid to China's aid. It happened 0 times in all the times that we were looking at the media. Surprisingly, Taiwan's story of being a recipient of aid to now being a donor of aid was also not a big narrative that was told a lot, which was surprising to me. I thought that would be one of the major ways that Taiwan, was creating a narrative about its aid journey, but that also was not very common. There we go. So one of the ways that I think creating this good image around Taiwan's foreign assistance can help it diplomatically is it creates a foundation for investment in those countries. We've seen a couple instances of this already, especially in Southeast Asia. So the Taiwan ICDF, they had a huge solar panel infrastructure project in many Southeast Asian countries. After they did that, within a couple years, Taiwanese solar panel companies had invested in Southeast Asia to create manufacturing hubs for solar panels in those countries. This is because investment through foreign aid creates human capacity, it betters infrastructure. They have things like Mandarin language training. So if you are in a Southeast Asian country, you receive Mandarin language training, you're more likely to get hired at a manufacturing plant that Taiwan builds in your country. So it kind of creates a foundation for investment later. It's a long-term relationship. We'll also note that this also creates good public opinion. So one hard thing about the public opinion issue is how effective it is in changing policy, especially if you live in a country where it has more authoritarian tendencies, is not necessarily a democracy. Is garnering good public opinion going to help you in the long term when it actually comes to diplomatic recognition? So in the case of the Solomon Islands, for example, there was great public opinion surrounding Taiwan and Solomon Islands. When Solomon Islands switched recognition from Taiwan to China, there was a lot of public discontent about it, not only because they knew that they were going to be losing key funding, people were going to be losing jobs, things that the connections they had to Taiwan through their foreign assistance projects, but in the end, that didn't actually shift the balance when it came to changing diplomatic recognition. So that's just an important thing to note. But I will say, there's another way that changing public opinion and basically gaining international legitimacy through aid can be important. So Taiwan does have MOUs with partner countries and multilateral aid giving organizations. The United States, that's probably not going to go anywhere after this, but they did have an MOU with USAID as well. And other countries, they have one with European Bank. They are a member of Asian Development Bank. So these multilateral organizations and bigger, more legitimate aid giving partners gain legitimacy for Taiwan in the international space. Even though they're not official diplomatic partners, they are partners in aid. And that in itself kind of helps it gain legitimacy. So I'll conclude here by saying just a few things that are still a challenge when it comes to Taiwan's foreign assistance. Even though their public image is improving and it's still really positive, this is constantly at a sway because there is a huge push for Taiwan to meet China in terms of the sheer sum of money it's spending on development assistance and aid. So one thing that can be lost in that mix is if you are really focused on the budget, you're really focused on the numbers, you lose a lot of these small projects that actually have a bigger human impact and kind of go around this idea of corrupt checkbook diplomacy, right? The smaller projects tend to not get that reputation as much. So I would encourage Taiwan to still focus on those projects, even though there's a huge push to really increase the aid, increase big projects. The other thing is budget in general. As many of you have seen in Taiwan, there's a lot of discussions, a lot of debate about the national budget. And this will continue to cause issues. I mean, MOFA already having some issues with budget cuts. ICDF could be part of that. So this is something that it will be facing as a challenge as well. And finally, just one thing that I've noticed in my research and some of my colleagues that were researching with me is it's just not well marketed. It's not well reported. Taiwan does not necessarily keep good track of its impact of its aid. And this is not unique to Taiwan. There are a lot of aid-giving countries that do not keep good record of the impact of their foreign assistance. But this is something that Taiwan can really improve on. And I think if it does that, it can better sell its story and better create a more positive narrative around its aid. So that's all I have for now, but totally open to questions as we ended.
Thanks, Zoe. It'd be fascinating to talk about how perhaps some of the decline in, maybe US aid in the region, it could be something that Taiwan builds on, or it could actually hamper Taiwanese aid distribution, like you mentioned at the end. So leave that for the Q&A. Our last speaker is Jeffery Wang. Jeffery is calling in from a Harvard conference. He did a panel that ended at 11:45 a.m. today. So I can say that he's probably pretty warmed up. We welcome Jeffery. He's a PhD candidate in political science and informatics at Indiana University, Bloomington. His research examines how non-binding international organizations like APEC and IFO facilitate strategic alignments through cooperation networks with a focus on Taiwan and China. From 2013 to 2016, Jeffery actually served as the APEC Small and Medium Enterprise Working Group focal point on behalf of Taiwan's Small and Medium Enterprise Associations. He hosted APEC meetings in Taiwan. He attended APEC ministerial meetings and contributed to joint ministerial declarations. Not only that, he drafted APEC-funded projects that were successfully approved and implemented. So, Jeffery, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Ben. I just want to say I'm hungry. You owe me a lunch. I have to skip the lunch. But anyway, it's very happy to be here, and really fascinating to know Leah and Zoe's speech, because they talk about the civil labels and also some Taiwan's like ODA projects really important. So here I will share my screen first, right here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can you guys see the screen? Yep. Is it good?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so very happy to be here. Like Ben introduced, I have experience in APEC, and also this is my main research for my PhD program. And I just also pitched this one in the conference. Okay, so I will focus on APEC regarding Taiwan's unofficial diplomacy. Hold on, let me see. So my presentation will be, this is the outline. So I will focus on why APEC, what is APEC and why it's important to Taiwan. And then I will focus on the unofficial alliances, which is rarely being discussed that within APEC's mechanism called project co-sponsorship. And then how we can understand the strategic alignments and participation through this kind of mechanism from a network perspective. And then finally is the implication to Taiwan's participation in the future. How can we be more effectively participating in APEC? Yeah, so what is APEC? It's a place that have 21 members from the Pacific and Asia, including the main powers, China, Japan, Russia, and the United States. and it comprises of 61% of global GDP and 46% of world trade share. So by itself, it shows its importance. And if we look at the APEC structure here, the dark blue these squares are the policy level, and we usually from the news we tend to hear more about like in the leaders meeting how like for example Xi Jinping, Trump, what's the dialogue within the meeting, but we rarely hear about these foundational units in APEC. They are foundational because states actually implement and propose projects with different issue topic areas from these working level units. And what they have achieved usually will go up scale, up level to the leaders meeting or ministerial meeting in their joint meeting declarations. And how about Taiwan to APEC? APEC joined Taiwan in 1991 together with PRC and Hong Kong. And this is one of the few formal IGOs Taiwan can enjoy full membership, but with certain limitations. If you look at the MOU Chinese Taipei to APEC, the delegation may include foreign minister official at or below director level. That means no president, vice president, or foreign minister at ministerial or the upper level meetings. But yeah, so that means we cannot host the minister level above meetings, but we still can host like senior official meetings informally and officially hosting working group meetings. And we have done that a lot. And also serving as the working group chairs to set up the agendas that benefit for Taiwan's participation. And here just give you a picture like there are so many public sectors in the governments in different sectors. They are in charge of different topic issue areas in APEC. And each year, National Development Council and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they host an annual APEC strategy meeting to coordinate those key work items. So that shows Taiwan government's value the APEC a lot, yeah, given its Taiwan's situation. And now this part I want to talk about the unofficial diplomacy, which really talk about from the researcher and policymakers. But before that, I'll just give you a little bit background. So APEC in the academic field, it considers not effective organization because it's less than it has only small bureaucracy, less than 50 staff. So they from their empirical research, they found that it's harder for them to manage the external pressure like financial crisis, anti-globalism. But so APEC under this category has smaller secretariat. But if we look at APEC projects and topic, you see that it's very consistent, even growing in terms of the project outputs and the coverage of the issue areas. So APEC still matters, and then Taiwan's participation in APEC is very important. And here I just want to give you a bit of information. What is co-sponsorship? So in APEC, members can co-economies, they can propose projects, and you have co-sponsory economies by like you inviting members you want to collaborate with, and then they can co-sponsor you, and then shapes a kind of directional network, right? So in this case, Brunei sent a co-sponsorship to Philippines, so we can build up the network like this, and then to further analyze this, the members, like Taiwan's position in this network. And then I also want to give you a bit like Taiwan's effort in APEC. This is a very important model Taiwan has used in the APEC or conducted. So it was the 10-year initiative, which is rare in APEC, given its long-lasting and successful project. Yeah, and the way I want to the slide here I want to highlight is that Taiwan will utilize a two-way approach. Usually we see that the news cover that is the President Representative Dr. Liu Yuan's proposed this APEC Digital Opportunity Center project in the 2004 APEC Leaders Meeting. But what's more undercover story is that it actually being discussed before the leaders meeting in the working group levels, being a wide range discussed and being supported. That's why I get kick out successfully. So from these models and what my working experience with the government officials, we can kind of have the rule of thumb of participating in APEC. The first one is that to actively participate in APEC, where Taiwan can contribute best practices, just like Zoe mentioned about Taiwan's like ODA practices, or like Leah mentioned about the civil society level, how we maybe deregulation efforts. Those things can use the APEC as a channel to promote as a best practices, best practices. Okay. And then also we can collaborate with the influential members, right? Like US or Australia, those powerful countries. And also we can take the institutional roles as the working group chairs, leading policy initiatives. But we know these things, but how can we measure the effectiveness of these strategies? That's what my research can contribute to this part. So from a network perspective, I would be kind of not go to the detail, but if you want to know more about detail, we can have a question, Q&A session in QA, or you can contact me for more details. So generally, I found that APEC follow a bandwagoning strategy. States aligned with the dominant actors, creating asymmetrical power relationships to gain benefits. But how can we understand what factors affect the co-sponsorship formulated? We can, from a network perspective, looking at the network structure, like these reciprocal ties, whether it has the significant effect on the co-sponsorship tie formation, or we can look at this one, the friend of friend clause, like this is the rationale focusing on my friend's friends, my friend, right? Also, we can look at like my friend's attributes. If my friend is powerful and my friend can connect to another member, maybe it increase the likelihood that I will co-sponsor to the other members. So knowing these things is also helpful for Taiwan policymakers to decide who they collaborate with. Also can look at the individual level, considering like whether yourself as a proposing economy, your GDP, military, or being an APEC host, whether those factors increase the likelihood of being co-sponsored. And this one is from a network perspective. You can look at like, if you are popular in terms of receiving a lot of co-sponsorship in the previous time, or you are getting the privilege status, that means you may not be connected by a lot of members in the previous time, but you are connected by the popular economy. That also give you a network centrality. By having those attributes, whether it increases the likelihood of you are being co-sponsored. And then finally, we can look at like shared attributes, like whether geopolitical identity, like in Southeast Asian countries, the ASEAN way, tend to maybe the ASEAN countries, they tend to collaborate with each other, or from the regime type, where democratic regimes tend to collaborate with each other. We can kind of testing that using the network model. And I focus on the four main issue areas: human resources, SME, energy, and trade. So this is my modeling result. I will go to the detail, but just look at my takeaways here. So basically, the strategic bandwagoning is the dominant pattern in APEC. That means members are selective and choosing the powerful members to collaborate, sending the co-sponsorship. And the reciprocal, structure network is kind of limited. So it's not, APEC is not simply just you co-sponsor me and you scratch my back, I will scratch yours back. No, not like that. It's very strategic, right? So, and then how it was strategic. So by each different issue areas we see differently. So high priority areas which have more security elements, cooperation is more selective and shared by like material power, network advantage. But low priority areas like SME is more inclusive, but still network privilege based. If you still remember what is the network privilege. And ideological commodity like region, is not the significant factors. So finally, what's the implication from all of these things to Taiwan? I just give you one example by one issue area, like trade issue area. So if you want to increase the likelihood of receiving co-sponsorship for a proposed project, like we proposed, Taiwan proposed, in trade cooperation, you can boost the influence by proposing projects that can be connected by popular members. Because if you look at here, because the network power privilege is the very strongly significant and positively. So we got to be the gain the privilege power by being connected by the popular members like Australia, Japan. They are very active in trade areas and receive a lot of co-sponsorship. But those things also policymakers, depending on their specific context in that moment, they can kind of adjust this policy making or how they want to attract their sponsorship. So that's pretty much all for now. But if you have any questions, yeah, that we can discuss more. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey, and thanks for reminding me I should have studied a little harder in college so I can do network analysis. But I think it's very interesting that you conclude that Taiwan's friendships with powerful or popular nations like Japan, Australia, I noticed you didn't mention the United States, is actually helping Taiwan in APEC. So we can maybe talk about that in the Q&A. But in the interest of time, since we have about 20 minutes left, I'd like to just turn it straight to the audience, see if there's any questions we have, or I'd like to say those who are online, you can post questions just in the YouTube feed, in the comments of the YouTube video you're looking at, or you can email them directly to us at contact@globaltaiwan.org. So any questions from the audience?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Mr. Wang, am I pronouncing your last name correctly? My name is Michelle Roshan. I noticed that you had talked about the overall unofficial diplomacy in Asia. What I wanted to say, I know that you are a candidate getting a bachelor's degree, not bachelor, PhD in political science. Okay, so I have a bachelor's degree in political science from Morgan State University, but I say that to say, when you are trying to build productive relationships unofficially, but you want to have a level of diplomacy, always make sure that you're complying with local and state laws that could be applicable in terms of OSHA, in terms of HIPAA, and in terms of just the laws that are just relative to that environment. Never go out of the boundaries of the laws that govern an area. And I think that once you can begin to, or people in general do that, you will get a more receptive outcome from anyone that you're trying to pursue. So in other words, I cannot come here and sell this building in 2013 and sell it from under you and then try to give it back to you. Yeah. So make sure when you're doing business with anyone, anywhere in the world, and I say this as a political scientist, look at the variables that you're dealing with when you approach a person, but also look at potential outcomes. If outcomes are going to be favorable, you don't need a lawyer all the time. You can just be a thinker and have inductive and deductive reasoning. If outcomes are going to be adverse, such as lawsuits and complaints, do not go that route.
Yeah.
Do not use just the person did not use profanity. You need a little bit more warm for you in terms of violating OSHA and violating local.
So in the interest of time, I'll take your question. Yeah.
Right.
I get the question. Yeah, it's about. No, sure. And it's a really useful question, and what we're talking about is the actual effect of trying to do outreach when there are local laws and regimes which can hold you back. So I'm going to actually just give this one to Leah very quickly to see, because you talked about how there's closing civic space in Southeast Asia. So have you noticed that it's actually becoming more dangerous to do activism in Southeast Asia? You mentioned a few countries where that's the case.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for example, you can see so many small cases around Southeast Asia. For example, like when Taiwan just passed the LGBT same-sex marriage law. You can see a lot of LGBT groups in Southeast Asia are actually very happy for us. So they will show Taiwan's flag in their campaigns, in their organization. You can see like Chinese government will put pressure on the local governments to ask them to take down. This is some small example that we can see China's influence on the Southeast Asia, like they have pressure to the government. But sometimes I think it's also coming from the government in the region too. Going back to the terrain aid part, like this year there is a very big earthquake in Myanmar, and it caused a building collapse in Bangkok. And Taiwan's civil society that we have very strong connection with community in Myanmar and also the community in the border of Thailand and Myanmar. So we are very rapidly, we have collect some small aid to want to send to Myanmar and to the border to people. And then Taiwanese government also want to send humanitarian aid to Thailand and to Myanmar, but you can see the Myanmar military junta rejected. So they just want to receive the aid from China, but they refuse to receive the aid from Taiwan. Yeah, but you can see the civil society's channel is very smooth. That we can still easily send money through some channels. We can easily send money into the community that helps.
Okay. Great. Any other questions? Please keep your questions brief. Anyone in the audience?
I've got a pretty succinct one. This is for Zoe Weaver-Lee, military fellow at Georgetown University. You mentioned about foreign aid from Taiwan in the media and a receiving nation, not doing compare and contrast of PRC versus Taiwanese foreign aid. You must have found in your research, even if anecdotal, PRC deliberately trying to undermine what Taiwan's doing, whether deliberately or just trying to upgun them. Was that something you found in your research?
Yes, definitely. We saw that a lot of the narratives about Taiwan themselves were focused on these small projects and their impacts on communities and not like the bigger geopolitical strategy, but that is 100% there almost at all times. In fact, there is a lot of research to show there's some great research coming out of Academia Sinica, where a lot of China's projects focus directly on countries that work with Taiwan. Yeah, it is like a priority for them to undermine.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone? Sir?
So the United States is pulling back on mRNA, and Taiwan help with personalized medicine, like or finding therapies for cancer. And you mentioned Taiwan helped during COVID, and China paid the WHO a lot of money. Jeremy Farrar was definitely dirty. The chief scientist at World Health Organization. So, what kind of investments can you do when the United States pulls back on it, mRNA? And just wanted to say, please buy Dr. Robert Redfield's book, so it goes into the bestseller. Comes out October 21st. It's called Redfield's Warning. He was the head of the CDC at the time COVID came out.
All right, we'll turn that to Zoe.
That is a good question, because I think there is huge opportunity for Taiwan to step up as USAID and other US aid programs step back. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, when it comes to the sheer sum of money, Taiwan just does not have the budget to totally fulfill those, and nor the workforce. ICDF is a relatively small workforce compared to what USAID was, but especially on the medical side of things. Taiwan's medical expertise and healthcare expertise is something that really a lot of countries benefited from already during COVID. And so it can absolutely take greater part in that. Although I will say China has already very quickly stepped in a lot of these places. It was very flexible and had the funds to do so. So it will have to go places where it's welcomed, as Leah is saying, which is another barrier. But one thing I did notice in my research as well with Adrian Wu, we found that Taiwan as a name was also rarely mentioned in these narratives about their projects. It was always ICDF. which, as you may know, it doesn't necessarily have Taiwan in it. The acronym does. Acronym Taiwan ICDF is their official name, but a lot of local media did not necessarily include the name Taiwan. And in fact, there was one instance in which it clearly said province of China. One local media did say that. So in terms of like Taiwan's identity being connected to some of these projects, there's an option to disconnect it, and they may have more flexibility doing that, but then you lose out on the diplomatic utility of those projects.
Any more thoughts? You,
I really see in kind of the nature of what it's kind of really see the role of like what private Western investment, private capital, whether biotechnology or obviously energy, playing a role in this kind of unofficial proposal.
yeah, maybe Jeffrey, the question is about, the role of Western private firms perhaps in facilitating. I know that in the case of APEC, there may be projects involvement. You have Canada, Mexico, the United States, in APEC. What do you think in that respect?
Yeah, thank you. There's UNICO. APEC does include the private sector in. So there's a place called APEC. It's the Asia Pacific Business. I forgot the full term. Sorry, the ABAC. So generally, they invite each member state. They will have like 3 representatives from the industry. So I remember like in the past, like HTC Taiwan, or some yeah, like usually I don't remember what United States they represented, but that's the way they can participate in the dialogue with the leaders. So that's the way also the Western norms they can be being disseminated in APEC, and actually APEC has more leeway to conduct a lot of the policies. I remember Ma Yun also was in APEC and then using APEC as a platform to share his ideas. So that's how it works in APEC. And Taiwan really sees the opportunity very well. Also, we use that chance as the unofficial channel to discuss a lot of issues with Western entrepreneurs, those famous entrepreneurs. And those things actually being heard a lot by and valued by the APEC leaders more sometimes than from the public government sector, that side, yeah.
Right, if you may recall, for a long time, APEC at the leaders' summits, Taiwan cannot actually nominate, they can't send their head of state, as you know from the MOU that Jeffrey described. So instead, they send a special representative, and that is usually a titan of industry. For a long time, it was Maurice Chan, who founded TSMC. But he would be the one going to Peru and rubbing shoulders with last year with Joe Biden. Actually, not last year. He didn't go last year, but he would meet with Joe Biden, even Xi Jinping, things like that, and Jack Ma, like you mentioned, of China, Alibaba. So there is, of course, a framework for Western firms. Any more questions, sir?
Taiwan's security issue is the focus point in the world. So my question is, what relationship between Taiwan security issue and civil society and unofficial diplomacy? What's relationship?
You mean the cross-strait relationship?
No, security issue is focus point. Once relationship is topic with Taiwan's security issue.
Oh, sure. So how does this unofficial diplomacy actually lead to concrete security benefits for Taiwan? I'll leave that to you, but Zoe, I think maybe yours.
Yeah. It is a huge part of I think when I say creating legitimacy around Taiwan, that is really what I'm talking about. Because I think when Taiwan's engaging with local communities and they're engaging public opinion in their favor, a lot of it comes down to if you're choosing between China and Taiwan, which they don't want to force any country to do, but they're trying to put them in a situation where they have stakes in Taiwan. When, again, with the Solomon Islands example, a lot of people in the local communities in Solomon Islands were against the switch, not only because of the fear of what they thought engaging with China would bring, but also because they had stakes in Taiwan. They had long relationships with Taiwan foreign assistance partners on the ground. So I think when Taiwan is building a network outside of its official, diplomatic partners, that's what you're doing is you're building a community that has stakes in Taiwan existing. So I think that is a huge part of it.
It's for Jeffrey. Jeffrey, in your network analysis, you were looking at the affinities between nations and the types of cooperations they had and the outcomes of those types of cooperations. And is your network analysis correlational or causal? Did you look at a time series of they tried this for 3 years and on the 4th year, this is the outcome? Or were you looking at a snapshot in time and saying the people who had these great relationships had great outcomes, vice versa?
Thank you. That's a good question. No, it's from 2006 to 2019. That's my data, and it's correlational. Because I use the network regressional models called ERGAM. So that's basically the dependent variable is the dyadic. So it's about actor I corresponds J, if whether those factors will increase the likelihood of the formation of that dyadic relationships. And so it does include a time series. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Fantastic. So
I'm Professor Lee from South Korea. Actually, visiting the DC here. I'm very interested in the Director Lin's activities. Right? So, how can you solve the financial problem to run your CAPA? So, it's a very important thing because you do many things, right? So, you
how are you managing to, essentially run your organization? It's always hard to run an NGO, it's a non-profit. So how do you manage to kind of make things work? And I know things are.
A difficult question. That's a very difficult question because it has different perspectives. Back to 2022. I think there are already a lot of INGOs moved to Taiwan. So actually in the sentiments, in civil society and among governments, department or political figures, they kind of feel like Taiwan can play a bigger role in the region, but they do not have a very clear vision on how to engage. Yes. So back to the time I need to have start up a lot of communication with governments and also with Taiwan's civil society organization to really make them accept the ideas that Taiwan actually need to connect and work more with Southeast Asia. And as you know, Taiwan for a very long time, I think longer than 3 decades, we have migrant workers from Southeast Asia, and as EU and criticize Taiwan, it is criticized as the mother slavery. So you can see for the mainstream society and also in our policy, there are a structural discrimination against Southeast Asia. So I think in the very beginning of when I started up ACFA, it is the most difficult part would be how do you exchange and really exchange ideas and spread the ideas to people that you're gonna work with. How do they believe that actually they can engage in the advocacy that you're working with? Yes. So we spent actually 1 to 2 years to really identify who are the Taiwan's organization that we can work with, and which is the targets, governments, departments, and people that we want to put more efforts to persuade. So this is in the very first 1 year, the most difficult part, I think.
Mhm.
But in terms of more like implementation parts, like operating sites, I think it is just taking a lot of time for me because as a millennial, I trying to form an NGO that is with more diversity in terms of everything. And but how to make this NGOs still a very professional place to push this campaign and advocacy in a very formal way, there is a big gap. You can imagine, like, I'm trying to make my organization young. So my board member, the leadership, there are people with just slightly older than me, like 30-something years old. So these people, they are not that competitive in terms of fundraising, in terms of political impacts. So the pressure would be put on me as a executive director. And also, if you want to make your organization younger, you hire younger people, and there are a lot of interesting things that you need to learn and overcome. So yeah, I think for public advocacy, for having bigger political impacts, this is one side, and for operation, this is totally different brand. So yeah,
Right.
maybe we can talk later.
So I hope Gen Z and millennials will have to run organizations.
We work good with each other.
Sir, I wish I could get to your question, but we are at time. Maybe you can ask them after this. Yeah, I did promise to try and get everyone out here by 1:15. I really want to thank you all for coming. I hope you now leave with an understanding. I know this was a lot of complex topics, but how a country that doesn't have recognition can still build its relationships in Asia. We'll never experience this, hopefully, in the United States, but for the people who want to support Taiwan and support Taiwanese efforts, you have a lot of leads now. So I do encourage you to follow up with the participants here. We can hand out Jeffrey's email too if you'd like to speak with him. But I just want to thank you for coming on this August day. And I do hope that we'll see you again sometime soon. Please stay tuned to our email newsletter and you'll see any events that we do. So thank you.
Thank you.
The